Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels and short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information that you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Monday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy Monday. We're back. It's a holiday. We don't take breaks. Nobody.
Welcome back. Yeah, welcome back to the best podcast in the industry. We're always here, no matter what. So, we got
rain or shine, holiday or not.
I saw everybody yesterday like walking around in my neighborhood that all like out for Sunday fun day at like, in the evening. And I was like, oh yeah, like no one has to go to work tomorrow. They're all here for
all these
vacation.
people that don't have to work though, besides like federal employees and banks, doesn't everyone else pretty much have to work today?
I think a lot of people take it off because their kids have off or like, that kind of thing. It's vacation week.
We have school for some reason.
Really?
So, yeah. Kids are at school.
Interesting.
Wow.
I know.
I didn't even know it was a holiday. Like I always tell my team, unless it's part of the Big Five, which is like New Year's, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, and I think 4th of July. Yeah, it's like you're working. Don't know what to tell you. Startups. So gotta work. But yeah, it's didn't know it was a holiday. So happy President's Day, I guess.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Congrats. We made it. Another holiday. How was your guys' weekends? You guys have any fun since you guys are both booed up, married, and hopefully if Max is listening, soon to be married. Cough, cough.
We just went out to dinner and actually played I'm learning how to play Mario Kart on the Switch. Because I wasn't allowed to have video games growing up. When I asked for a Game Boy, I got an educational video game, so that kind of sets the scene. But I did know how to play Mario Kart Wii, and so now I'm learning how to play it with like a controller. The learning curve is steep when you're learning how to play video games in your 30s.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but good on you for the Switch. I love it on the Switch. It's fun. It's easy. You can kind of do it the Wii, if you have
put it on the TV, so we have we can each play the controllers and got some Mario Party. So very chill weekend.
Love that. What about you, Golden?
I had a 6-year-old birthday party to go to, so that was exciting.
Wild times.
It was at a place called Good Times. It's like a bowling alley arcade, so it was lights, noises, kids screaming. And on top of that, it was the Auburn, Alabama basketball game at the same exact time. So the dads were kind of watching that over at the bar area, and we won. So great day. Number one versus number 2 in the country. Auburn pulled it out. War Eagle. Keep that number 1 seed.
Let's go.
Sports.
Big win. Big win. Love that. Well, I had a nice weekend off. Basically got to unplug, which is very needed for all of our entrepreneur listeners. Not that if you're not an entrepreneur, it's not tough, but business can be tough. So unplug when you need to. And I'm glad I did because got to go hike and explore some of my local, state parks here in Colorado, and had a actually really fun and good first date yesterday. So, shout out to Hinge for a good first date. I was really skeptical on the dating app side, but worked out pretty good. So we have a second date coming up. Fingers crossed.
Right.
I can attest that it works out sometimes. So it's worth doing it.
Yeah, I was pretty hesitant going in. My buddies were like, dude, just go to the date. I was like, oh, I don't want to. But glad I did. So anyways, moving on. We have quite the docket of topics today. For the listeners, you can see for our title covering Mint House and the acquisition of Locale, Marriott and Sonder licensing deal details has been a little bit more released during the Sonder Q3 delayed earnings report, and then Airbnb flexing its market share gains. And I guess we'll decide if that's really a gain or if it's just good PR again. But Before we get into today's headlines, I want to talk about something that every property manager and housekeeper can relate to after a wild Valentine's Day weekend, and that is garbage. Because let's be real, your cleaners have already seen things that they can't unsee inside of your properties. The last thing they need to is step outside and face a trash pile that looks like a crime scene from a rom-com gone wrong. Champagne bottles, takeout containers, and was that a melted chocolate fountain? Well, that's where Fido comes in. Their bin to curb service makes sure that your team and your next guest never have to roll up to a property and deal with the aftermath of a romantic weekend gone too well. Wink, wink. Um, they handle the bins so your staff can focus on scrubbing away their PTSD from whatever happened inside of that rental. So give your team and your next guest a break. Check out Fido at getfido.com and let them take the trash literally off your hands. Shout out to Fido, and we are back to the episode. So first topic.
Bag of props today, Will? Any trash?
Nope.
No.
No Valentine's Day weekend trash this time, but figured the fun little ad read was good. Yes. So go ahead, Michael. You seem
I'm eager to jump into this one. You got to cover the breaking news with the CEO of Menthouse. So appreciate you doing that, and it's a really good listen. Learned a little bit more about their strategy, which I want to jump into. But first, Brandy, they're a direct competitor. They're in Miami, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So they're a direct competitor. What's your initial feedback? Did you see this come in? Do you think that this deal makes sense?
Yeah, well, I think we've been talking for, a year and a half about how the industry is going to continue to consolidate. And so, unfortunately, among like the urban operators, it's mostly just been people going out of business and the existing companies kind of picking up buildings that they want. So this is like an actual acquisition, which I think is a good sign. This isn't Locale going out of business and Menthouse coming in to pick up their buildings. So I always think, this is, if you're an entrepreneur and you're looking for an exit, you want to reap the rewards of your success. Like this is great. And I think that it's good for the industry to continue to have consolidation, to have the stronger players getting stronger. There's only a few big urban operators left, and I don't think Sonder's going out for any acquisitions anytime soon. So yeah, I think it's a good thing, and I think that I don't know how many more of these we're going to see, just because, like I said, there's not like a ton in the landscape unless you have, non-urban operators going into urban spaces or things like that. So I think it's great to see, and congratulations to both teams. Even though we're all direct competitors, it's like frenemies. You want to see people succeeding in your space because it's proving the concept.
Yeah. And I mean, I knew the founder, Will Lucas of Menthouse, and he's a great guy. It's, not anybody that you'd want to root against. And then they brought in Christian, the current CEO, and Will had a good back and forth with him and his background. And turns out his background is M&A. So he has done 20 acquisitions throughout his career. Maybe this marks 21. And so something tells me, first of all, I'm surprised that it took them that long from him being in the role to get their first acquisition. But second of all, you don't bring in a hired gun with loads of acquisition experience without that being a long-term part of the strategy. So I'd suspect this is the first, they're going to probably take their time on this deal, make sure it integrates well. And I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing a few more. But to your point, Brandy, there's really not that many left in the urban side. So is there a Romy deal in the play? You don't have to answer that. Just got to throw it out there.
Well, I think what's interesting is a lot like Miami is it's kind of this microcosm. Like there's a ton of operators here, but they're not on, it's like very localized. So, but people, there's, Miami operators who have, 200-300 units, and they're not even someone that we think about on the national stage. So I think that this is just part of that continued consolidation between the more national players. And so we'll see how that trickles down into maybe some local players in the next year or two.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's an interesting play too. If you look at the local side, I would think like consolidating locally would be great, because then hopefully you can turn once you get big enough. Like you guys are in 2 markets, right? So if a player got big enough in Miami, they can consolidate maybe some local operators there, hopefully get into another market and then become more of that national play. I'm wondering or curious if we'll see urban operators pop up after seeing successful brands like Locale and Minthouse and Romy kind of continue to stay. Let's just say that instead of crash. I brought that up with Christian, was like, getting to see the bloodbath of COVID, obviously for urban operators was not successful, but it's really interesting with Christian because I met him at the Skift STR forum in 2024 last year, and I was kind of asking him the same thing. I was like, what's your background? I had him on Slick Talk and got to have a little bit more of a deeper conversation than the interview that we did for this acquisition. And he's from the outside of the industry, so I think they're playing it smart, as you said, Michael, taking their time on this integration with Locale, but also they've taken their time with Christian getting into a more kind of a dominant figure role in the industry. Now with this acquisition, I'm expecting this to speed up pretty quickly. And again, the question is with who, though? That's the next piece, and maybe they're going to identify some cool operators that are in cities that they're already in and wanting to be in, and maybe start scaling that way. That's my kind of like low-hanging fruit or guess, but yeah, would love any thoughts that you guys may have.
Yeah, I think that just kind of sums it up. We'll just have to see. I think that it's also, with the time that it takes to pick these operators, the wrong choice could be very detrimental. So I think taking your time to do the due diligence, and then now that they've done that, to fully absorb another operator, I think when you go on too quick of a shopping spree, absorbing all of that is very, very difficult, and that can just not necessarily fully tank what you've done, but make it much more difficult.
Just ask Vacasa. They did what, 100 and something acquisitions in 8 years or something crazy. Yeah, I mean, back to there's not that many out there with any reasonable scale. I don't think there's too many, at scale. There's probably loads of single building operators, but they don't really have a big presence within the industry. So quite frankly, I don't really know who they are. Some big ones over in Europe, Altito obviously got rolled in already. Bob W seems to be the one that's kind of blowing up in a great way.
Shout out to Nico, who did message me on LinkedIn and has some fun stuff for us coming up in the pipeline. And they reached profitability this year, so it's exciting to see that they're actually doing being successful. Wow, words are hard. Monday morning, am I right?
Yeah. So they're unlikely to be rolled in if they're already profitable. That's probably not in fact, it might be the other way around. Bob W could end up buying Minthouse one day. But it kind of leads into our next topic of Sonder. If I'm leadership at Romy or at Minthouse, I'm kind of sitting back and just waiting for Sonder and the pieces to kind of fall apart and just pick up the scraps. Costs $0 in acquisition. In fact, like, you're probably going to get discounts because the market will be, in essence, flooded at that point, and these owners of these buildings are going to have no idea what to do. So Locale, they probably got antsy. Saunders survived and stuck around longer than maybe a lot of people anticipated, but I have to assume that's part of the strategy.
Yeah, the interesting thing about going in after Sonder or any other operator that's been doing the arbitrage model is that landlords are very accustomed to receiving like way above market rents. So you have to have this like education process of like, there's a reason why Sonder left your building or why you kick Sonder out or whatever the operator is, because that model does not work anymore. But I do think, with the Marriott Sonder deal, there's now kind of more quality control because of what Marriott's standards are for what they want in there to be like associated with their brand, what they want to distribute. So Sonder may continue to shed units, not necessarily that they're bad units, but maybe that they don't fit within the parameters that Marriott has.
Well, I will say in the article that we read about the licensing deal that revealed a little bit more information, there was a shed of units, I think from 11,800 down to about 10,000. But they're reaching higher RevPARs and ADRs now. So yes, they're still unprofitable. They're still bleeding cash, but with the shed of units and a D scale, hopefully we could see them get more, I guess, like, better metrics within the buildings that they keep themselves. And I think it's great because then operators like you guys, Brandy, get to pick up the buildings that maybe in your markets that you're already in or wanting to be in, or, Mint House, for an example. So it's not a big lose right now, but again, it's still like a lot of pieces are slowly, the breadcrumbs are becoming bigger. Let's just say that the chunks of peel off from Sonder are still big. But it's really interesting to watch as they're reporting their delayed financials. And then for the listeners, to give you some context, the Marriott and Sonder licensing deal was broken down to about a $15 million spend to Sonder from Marriott. They got $7.5 million up front when this deal was signed and inked, and then they're supposed to get the remaining $7.5 million by the end of March. So you'd think it would be and we've made comments on this show that this licensing deal is like a lifeline to Marriott, or a lifeline to Sonder from Marriott, but they're still bleeding cash. So this 15 million is a very small drop in the bucket of money they're losing. So to share the context, just for listeners' sake, definitely highly recommend that you grab the links in the show notes that we'll put in the episode later. But it's really interesting to watch. I think the saga continues, and I know you guys have a bunch of other points to make, but I just find it really interesting from just all the hype that we saw in the early days to where we are today.
Yeah. First of all, the deal from Marriott's standpoint, I love it. Makes absolute total sense. It locks Sonder in for a minimum of 5 years. They give a nominal amount of money in the grand scheme of things, from Marriott's balance sheet to Sonder to lock in a 20-year deal. There's early prepayment or cancellation fees tied in if they do cancel within 5 years. But Sonder's also paying a royalty fee back to Marriott. So
undisclosed too, so we don't know how much.
And that, my guess, I haven't read this anywhere, this is pure speculation, but my guess is if something goes south with Sonder, that Marriott's allowed to take over the brand. And then, they now have a somewhat known commodity of an urban brand where they don't have to build their own for a $15 million investment minus whatever royalties and bookings come through their platform that they're taking a fee on. So absolutely a heck of a deal by the team at Marriott. Kudos. Yeah. Well done. And I mean, not a bad play by Sonder, although I read that Sonder was getting, and somebody can fact check me here. So occupancy rate was 84.8%, which is super high. And so there's not that much meat on the bone for Marriott to go and book from my read. That said, Sonder's probably spending way too much in pay-per-click marketing or online marketing, which hopefully they can wane that spend down and let it run through Marriott instead. But all around, some more, the breadcrumbs will trickle out with the Sonder Marriott deal, and Sonder over, seeing how it plays out in the long term.
Yeah, I remember last year or the year before when Marriott announced that the Apartments by Marriott was coming, and we were like, oh my gosh, like they're getting into the STR space for real this time, but it's going to take them a while to build all of this. So like, it's not that big of a deal. And then they're like, actually, we're going to add 10,000 units in like with one pen stroke. And I have to say, genius move. And so Sonder just becomes like the de facto operator of Apartments by Marriott. They don't have to build all those units or sign those deals, because you're saying that the first official one's opening in Pennsylvania, but that was that project obviously started years ago. So it's just this sped up that project by, order of magnitude. And yeah, again, great deal. And for Sonder, I think it's like, what other options were on the table, And so as far, they had to kind of take, it seems like the best option rather than winding down the company or something like that.
Yeah. And for the listeners, if you want more information on the Apartments by Marriott building, that's going to be the first one under that brand. Check out last week's Good Morning Hospitality Hotel Crew edition with Steve Turk and Sarah Dandishi, as they actually covered that topic and the brand and the building. Really interesting insights from them. But yeah, 100% agree. One hell of a deal by Marriott. Congrats to that team, and they have a big win on all sides, whether they end up getting the rights to acquire Sonder or getting a fat breakup fee if Sonder ends up leaving within 5 years. So I can't complain. Marriott still continues to be the superior brand in a lot of ways. But talking about superior brands and market share gains, or at least claims of it, let's go into Airbnb's claim, as they are sharing that they're overtaking Vrbo and, of course, hotels, which is an interesting claim. Again, always making sure their PR machine is running at full force, but would love to see who wants to tackle this one first.
Sure. Oh, I beat you to it.
Go ahead, Andy. Go ahead.
I don't think that they've been overtaking Vrbo. I think that has already happened. Vrbo is kind of the David in this scenario, fighting against this PR Goliath that Airbnb is. But taking of hotel traveler market share, I believe that. I think one of my questions before the show is like, how are they measuring that? Because I believe that people who traditionally book with hotels are now getting into Airbnbs, but I would be curious as to how they're measuring that. But I mean, Airbnb is the name in the industry. And I think that even anecdotally from our guest standpoints, we're having more and more people stay with us, not necessarily just from Airbnb, but that are coming in and booking with a short-term rental for the first time. And we saw that really tick up during and after COVID, but that trend is still continuing.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I get that, but then I look at Expedia's stock and they're up 56% in the past 6 months. So are they really overtaking them, or is Expedia's broad offering of hotels, flights, and short-term rentals actually a better one? So they might be gaining a little bit of market share in urban short-term rental or in destination. I think I read that on one of their earnings transcripts. But in the end, Airbnb, and I think we're going to touch on this next week with Jamie, Airbnb has to have a play and a strategy outside of just short-term rentals. Because at some point, they're going to be capped. And Expedia, went through a little bit of turmoil with, transitioning legacy systems, new CEO, et cetera. But I mean, they're kind of back. They're up 56% in 6 months. That's pretty good. They're not hurting. And then a gain on hotels isn't terribly surprising, because pretty much every time I turn on the TV, it's a commercial of Airbnb, showing why staying with one of their properties is better than in a hotel. So I get, like, if you just pepper that out a million times, you're going to gain market share, period. That's it. But they're definitely buying that. So is that long-term? Is that substantial or sustainable? We'll see.
Yeah, I think one of the other interesting things that I think Brian said in the earnings report is like that stays are just a part of Airbnb, and this is like a nod to like the coming revamp and experiences. But then I was like, okay, stays and experiences, and then what? Like as part of your monetization efforts, because the AI components that they say they're going to release, I don't believe that that's monetized. Like those are just additions to make the guest or host journey easier. Maybe on the host side, there's monetization there, but experiences and what else? Like what else is if stays is not going to be the significant driver, like are they going to start adding flights? Like what is that other big component that's going to be one of their $1 billion, revenue ideas? So they didn't really, I'm still unclear as to what that will be.
Was more midterm and long term kind of stays gonna be a thing? I know I didn't read the full group chat this morning with Jamie, but kind of seeing midterm rentals and long term rentals maybe becoming more
Wouldn't
dominant.
wouldn't you count that as
Or
stay? Like that's
yeah,
if stays are people staying in a location, the length. I guess that's why it's like, are they going to define like their short-term product stays versus more
yeah,
mid-term, long-term, and that kind of
Yeah,
thing?
they've essentially killed. When I joined the industry 10 years ago, there was an entire segment called corporate housing. That doesn't exist anymore. There is no such thing as corporate housing. It is all, it's operators that largely will list on Airbnb, and 10% of their bookings are longer than 30 days. So that's a great service. Corporate housing used to be, a big thing. I'm sure there's still corporate housing companies out there. Don't get me wrong. Or even operators that just focus on short-term rentals, but on corporate rentals. But I guarantee you they list on Airbnb. So, I mean, 10% of the market is pretty big in terms of like gross bookings. And those are valuable bookings because they're longer than 30 days. It's 100% occupancy and zero cleans. Like, that's everyone loves those bookings, especially even if they're paying a discounted price, but especially if they're not paying a discounted price.
Yeah, if you can get the real ADR in there, that is fantastic.
Randy's operating hat goes full force when she
Well, I
hears
mean,
full price,
for
long
real,
stays, no cleans.
in the low season months, those are the best bookings because you can
Yeah,
really keep your costs at bay, have everything occupied. It's a great way to fill in between your high seasons.
for sure.
There's nowhere I'd rather spend than a month of July in Miami.
Oh yeah, do you like rain every day?
I love the sun. Can't you tell?
Yeah.
The sun is great.
I'll take it. I'll take it. Well, very, very good. So I also want to make a quick disclaimer because last week we had some fun rivaling topics, but this show is an opinion-based show. We love to cover news and share our thoughts. So just make sure that you also do your own research, find and form your own opinions, and bring up the discussion with us. We would love to discuss more of this with our listeners and with the experts and industry leaders over the entire world. But before we wrap up, I want to give one big exciting announcement that we got to share last week. So Good Morning Hospitality is growing, and who is surprised? Nobody, because we're the best. But Good Morning Outdoors is launching this Thursday. So not only will you get us on Mondays, our Europe crew on Tuesdays, and our hotel crew on Wednesdays, you'll get the whole new outdoor edition on Thursdays, same time, 7 a.m. PST, 10 a.m. EST. And guess what? We have amazing two new hosts, Matt and Alex, joining us, who are going to really level up the not only the show with the brand, but also with the premium content and the inside scoops that they have on the very, very intensely growing outdoor sector. So really pumped to have them joining us. And yeah, so make sure you stay tuned for this Thursday's Good Morning Outdoors by GMH. Very excited. Let's go.
I love it. I've seen so many people, including myself, have kind of blurred the lines between short-term rentals, hotels, and now the outdoor space. It is definitely the hot segment. It is the Wild West. And we're excited to see what news Matt and Alex and insights they can bring to us.
For sure. Yeah, Brandy, were you as excited as we were when you saw the announcement? I know we've been working on it behind the scenes, but yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, it's great. It's the outdoor segment is the one that I'm the least familiar with. So I'm excited to kind of learn more. And I feel like we just hear little pop-ups, every now and then about like a hotel that's acquired some sort of brand. So it'll be great to actually learn more about the industry, like the inner machinations of the industry as it goes on.
For sure. Well, yeah, congrats to Alex and Matt for bringing this to us, and really excited to work with you guys. And for the listeners, we want to hear from you. You can sign up for our Good Morning newsletter where you can get the news directly to your inbox before we go live. And also, we want to hear more topics that you guys are interested in. We're creating new ways for you guys to communicate with us. If you have inside knowledge on soon to be covered stories. We would love to get some inside scoops, some tips, and all the other good stuff. So stay tuned as we're getting ready to launch some new initiatives with the show and the brand. But outside of that, what do you guys got going on this week? Anything exciting? Same old, or are we gonna have something to?
Unfortunately, it's same old, but I'm going to the exotic metropolis of Indianapolis next weekend. So
Whoa.
it's going to be a whopping 5 degrees.
Yeah,
So
in February. Brave.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what you do to go see family. So
Well, enjoy. Nothing new over here. Same old, Will. Not
I figured.
just drinking my well and good morning coffee.
Yeah, speaking of Well and Good Morning Coffee, stay tuned. Some announcements this week as well. We have a lot of updates coming to you live, but we'll hold on to that cat for a little bit while is Mia, is she on her perch over there?
She's up there.
Right.
She's if
perching.
you can see the black blob behind me, that's Mia.
Well, the cat's almost out of the bag, but not Mia. She's perching. So we let Mia just do her thing. But for all the good morning people out there, thank you so much for tuning in. Shout out to Paul, shout out to Matt, shout out to any of our live viewers who always comment in. We love and appreciate all that you guys do in supporting us as a show. And make sure to go to your favorite podcast platform, YouTube, like and subscribe, do all the fun things, get our newsletter. And of course, next week we will see you then. Bye-bye. If I can get the outro video.